This is Talking Foreign Policy, critical look at Canada's role abroad, and I'm Yves Engler. With tens of thousands of Canadians displaced by forest fires, Mark Carney declared yesterday that, quote, threats which felt far away and remote are now immediate and acute. He was not referring to climate change exacerbated forest fires that have displaced tens of thousands of Canadians, but rather Russia and China. He made that comment at a speech announcing that Canada would reach NATO's massive 2% of GDP on military spending target by next year. This is a major increase in Canadian military spending. To break this down, we have Tamara Lorincz, who is a fellow with the Canadian Foreign Policy Institute and a PhD candidate with the Balsillie School of International Affairs. First of all, thanks a lot for coming on Talking Foreign Policy. Can you start off by just explaining Carney's announcement yesterday?
Yes, thanks, Eve, for having me. So, our Prime Minister announced a massive increase to military spending to meet the NATO 2% GDP target earlier than expected. Under the previous Liberal government, they had talked about trying to increase to 2% by 2032, and now it's going to happen over this next year. So, in that announcement by our Prime Minister, it stated that there would be an immediate $9 billion increase. So, to put that into perspective, in the past 10 years, Canadian military spending has increased 100% from $20 billion in 2015 till this year, $41 billion. So, over the next year, Canada is going to be spending $50 billion on the military. And some of the investments are going to be, as it's stated in this announcement, is going to be funding for things like like armed drones, the Arctic over the Horizon radar, to invest in the joint support ships that are going to be sailing in the Arctic, long range precision strike capability, and an increase in domestic ammunitions production, and then more production of things like light armored vehicles, light utility vehicles. So the defense industries across the country are very happy about this. CADSE, which is the Canadian Association of Defense and Securities Industries, they, of course, are very happy, and they said that this is a long time coming. Canada needs to be spending more on the military. So this is going to enrich the weapons manufacturers, not just in Canada, but also in the United States, because so much of the weapons that we procure are from the United States. But the other thing that's super troubling is all of this investment is going to militarize our economy and lock it into carbon intensive militarism for the next decades. So we are going to be ramping up weapons production and making our defense industrial base bigger and stronger. And this is exactly the kind of investment that is going to wreck the Canadian economy and really undermine our security here at home.
Yeah, and in the speech, one of the things that Carney tried to talk a lot about sort of breaking away from the US. It kind of had an anti-US element to it, but as you mentioned, this is going to lead to a big amount of purchasing of US equipment. That's the likely scenario. On that front, there was also an announcement by the Auditor General yesterday about the planned F-35 purchase of the Lockheed Martin fighter jets. And basically, I think the essence of the announcement was is that the $19 billion figure that had been initially cited, it was about 50% less than what is the new figure, which I think is like 27 billion. And they actually suggested, I think, that there was going to be even more than that. So this is also, of course, part of this dynamic where Carney's trying to act anti-Trump but still has lots of, he's doing what Trump wants in terms of increasing military spending. And on the F-35, he sort of suggested that they're going to back away from this purchase. But we also have seen that it's the military doing a review of the F-35 purchase. They've already committed to a big chunk of them. But yeah, can you just tell us a little bit about what was said yesterday about this increase in cost of the F-35, and I guess maybe a bit of the broader context of sort of how this fits in with being critical of the U.S.
Yes. So the Federal Office of the Auditor General just released their spring report, and they uh, audited a number of federal programs. And one of them was the F-35 procurement program, because this is the second largest most expensive federal procurement in Canadian history. In January of 2023, our then Defense Minister, Anita Anand, announced that Canada is going to buy 88 F-35 fighter jets. These are the Lockheed Martin stealth fighters for a cost of $19 billion. But just this week, the Auditor General said that that cost is too low. Now it's going to be, like you said, 50% higher. So 27 billion just to purchase them. And the Auditor General said that things like the sustainment costs, the advanced weapon systems, the infrastructure that is needed are going to cost a lot more. And Canadians should be aware that over the past couple of years, the U.S. Government Accountability Office, which is the equivalent to the Auditor General of Canada, they have had a number of Senate hearings where they have presented reports on the F-35, and they have shown that the sustainment costs are out of control. So if Canada goes through with buying these F-35s, we are faced with out of control costs and I mean, this is very serious for our public finances, for our budget, and being able to afford the kind of federal programs that Canadians rely on, like the federal social health transfer. So this is very serious. Canadians need to pay attention to this
And
Auditor General report.
And just to be clear about this, the life cycle cost, even before this Auditor General report, was suggesting something in the range of 70 plus billion for the
Yes,
F-35s over the life cycle. Now that would presumably be about 50% more. So it now maybe something in the range of 100 billion, just
that's
the fighter jets.
That's right. So the Parliamentary Budget Office, which is also does a type of auditing, but is different from the Office of the Auditor General. The PBO, they released a report about 2 years ago. I think it was November 2022, on the life cycle costs for the F-35, and they said over the 30 years, that the cost would be about $74 billion. So now, because of inflation, the PBO is going to have to go back and look at their estimates from 2 years ago, because it's going to be even higher. So Canadians really need to be very concerned about this F-35 purchase, and we need to start calling for Canada to cancel the purchase. We cannot go through with buying the F-35s. We need to ground this purchase entirely.
And so here, that is the sort of bigger question that's now, you didn't see much of this from politicians or the media, but you're starting to see this seep in, which is it's previously been, okay, we just need to increase military spending. Now we're starting to see discussion about we need to start cutting social programs to increase military spending. And the new defense minister, McGuinty, he said that at the CANSEC arms fair 10 days ago. He suggested that he talked about some other countries where they've cut bureaucracy, they've eliminated holidays. And you also saw that in the Globe and Mail editorial from about a week or 10 days ago, saying we should talk about cutting pharmacare, old age assistance to pay for this huge increase in military spending. And I saw that Carney kind of referenced that as well. We're going to start making some, hard choices, I think is the language they're using. So this is going to start the austerity when it comes to social programs is going to start coming much more clearly, and we've seen that happen in the UK. There was a big protest on Saturday in the UK. Welfare, not warfare. Nurses, not nukes, I think were some of the slogans, kind of highlighting the fact that there's been big cuts in social programs to this big increase in military spending in the UK. So that's, of course, I think something that we need to start, put on our radar. But the other part on this whole discussion is that this now 2% GDP number is now they're already saying this is the floor and we got to start moving upwards. And we have this upcoming NATO summit where they're talking about a 5% of GDP, 3.5% on what they call hard military, and another 1.5 on associate security or military associated spending. Now, in Canada's case, that would get us towards something like $150 billion. Right now we're going to go towards 60 billion with some of the accounting changes they've done to get this 2% of GDP. But now we're talking about a whole 100 billion more. Yeah, I guess just sort of like, what's your kind of comment on that, kind of the broader outlook of where we're going here with this radical military expansion?
Well, Eve, the NATO Secretary General, Mark Rutte, laid it out in a major address that he gave at Chatham House in London, in the UK, yesterday. And I encourage people to check it out. So, in that speech, he talked about the fact that the NATO allies are expected to agree to a 5% GDP commitment at the upcoming NATO summit in The Hague. And this will be the plan over the next decade to massively increase military spending. And why are we going to be increasing military spending? Why is the NATO Secretary General calling for an increase to weapons production and a more robust defense industrial base in all of our countries? Because NATO is preparing for a war with Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. It's really very clear if you read that speech, if you pay attention to the announcements, not just what the NATO Secretary General is saying, but also what the U.S. Defense Secretary said, for instance, at the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore a couple of weekends ago, where he said that China is the greatest threat to the United States. So they are preparing for war. And this is why it's so urgent for us to push back, because if we increase military spending and weapons production, it will cause mass immiseration in our countries. There will be more and more Canadians falling into poverty. And you mentioned in the beginning of this show that there's wildfires across the country. In the Office of the Auditor General report on the F-35, this is a fossil fuel powered weapon system. She didn't say anything about fuel, about the climate impacts, about the emissions that these F-35s are going to emit. All of this militarization, all of these new weapons are going to exacerbate the climate crisis, putting more Canadians in great danger from climate-induced extreme weather and greater poverty. So it's urgent for Canadians to speak up, to stand up, to call on their members of parliament to say, we don't support this and we want Canada out of NATO.
Yeah, and just I haven't seen anyone mention this, but I mean, it's only 6 weeks ago where Carney was promising during the election campaign to break away from the U.S., and now here he is giving a big sop to what Donald Trump wants, which is this huge increase in military spending, and also he had put forward a different proposal on when he would reach the 2%. Now he's changed that rapidly. So even at the simple level of just sort of breaking promises, electoral promises, there's reason to criticize Mark Carney. I think we'll leave it at that. But thanks a lot for coming on, talking foreign policy, Tamara.
Thanks for having me, Eve.